I'm not convinced it was a UFO. I'm one of those who would say there's probably a reasonable explanation sort of guy when it comes to the paranormal. I'm like 80% sure I was mistaken or my brain was just short-circuiting. Anyway, I was walking down the street one night and it was clear skies. I live in Maine, so the stars are out if it isn't cloudy, minimal light pollution. I look up at the sky, and there is what looks like a star just chilling, like stars do. This thing was stationary for about a second or two when I looked up. All of a sudden, it just goes from being stationary to just taking off across the sky. It was fast, too fast almost. It looked like a normal bright star that just decided to zip off somewhere else. I believe in extraterrestrial life. Not necessarily little green men type, but some sort of life form has to exist somewhere else. After all, we exist. Never got why some people think it would be unthinkable for some form of intelligent life to exist when we're intelligent, sentient life living here on Earth. As I said, I'm sure it was just a trick of the mind. Perhaps it was a meteor or satellite that just appeared stationary when my eyes met it. Either way, I was taken aback by it. That's the closest I've ever come to seeing something paranormal with my own eyes. Welcome back. Dark Recaps here, wishing you a scary Christmas and a haunted New Year. Hit that like button and subscribe for more creepy true stories in 2023. Let's continue. Forest entity. Quote, my daughter and I regularly and reliably saw hide behind from my kitchen window. This eventually led to us learning the truth about this Midwestern mythical creature. What we saw was 7 to 8 feet tall, bipedal, spindly legs, gaunt with protruding rib cage, no horns or protruding ears. They would lean out from behind a tree in the forest behind our house. If you moved about, it would pop back behind the tree. We never saw more than one at a time, but there seemed to be more than one, as height varied. We sometimes saw it multiple times a day. The behavior was always the same. It seemed wary of us, but if we stayed out of sight, it would lean out into view for a few seconds at a time. When we sent the dog out, it would run off into the forest after it, but never chased it into view, so that told us nothing. I viewed it through a rifle scope and got a good long look at it silhouetted against the snow behind the trees. It was really creepy, like a Slender Man or something. I could determine the height by going out and measuring the trees that it stood next to. I of course did not shoot it, since you should not shoot what you cannot identify. The only large bipeds hereabouts are people, though nothing human is that tall or narrow. We knew the local legends, and this matched the description and behavior. We dug out our trail camera, but solved the mystery before we got a chance to set it up. Sorry to disappoint folks, but we solved the mystery, as I'm sure many have before us. As winter sets in, the deer like to stand on their hind legs to eat the tips of pine tree branches. They are totally scared of people and will always do it behind trees. But every so often one that is sick, starving, had twins or gave birth too late in the season, will be desperate. The desperate ones will lean out to get the untouched branches in view of the house, but if they sense movement, they duck away. It was a large deer with corvid wasting disease. Standing on its hind legs is a bizarre, 8+ foot tall, skeletal-looking thing, with protruding ribs and sunken in gut. End quote. Something's in the woods. Quote, I was 7 years old and staying at a babysitter's house. The sitter had a son whom I'll call D, and the next door neighbor had a daughter whom I'll call L. This occurred in a rural bedroom community in North Carolina back in the late 70s. Me and Dee used to spend most of our time at L's house next door because she had a swing set. There was a patch of woods behind their houses and a train track ran through the woods directly behind the homes. I only add this detail to let you know there was nothing back behind the homes at that time other than some woods and an embankment that led down to the train tracks. Elle's house was surrounded by a chain link fence that separated her parents' property from the woods. It was summer and we were in Elle's backyard playing on her swing set when this occurred. I was standing on the swing and pumping my arms back and forth as I faced the woods. I liked standing on the swing because it made me taller and I could see into the woods. I pumped my arms and looked up into the woods, and there was a creature that looked like a giant yellow robot from the 1950s, and it had horns and a very angry face. It was facing to my left and walking through the woods. I screamed at the top of my lungs when I saw it. When I screamed, it turned and looked directly at me. I can still see that thing's face. I jumped off the swing as Dee and Elle were yelling, "What's wrong?" I was obviously shaken and trying to tell them there was something in the woods. We ran up to the back door of Elle's house and yelled for her mom to come out, and I tried to tell her what I'd seen. Of course, being a rational adult, she laughed it off and told us to go play. By this time my mom had come to pick me up, and I tried to tell her what I'd seen, but she also didn't believe me. Usually, when my mom arrived, she would stay and talk to Elle's mom or Dee's mom for a bit while we continued to play up until it was time for me to go home, but not that day. I refused to go back near the swings or back into the backyard. I'm in my 50s now, and I've never forgotten that. I am not comfortable thinking I had a sudden hallucination, but what the hell else could it have been? It was truly terrifying, and I can still see that creature or whatever the fuck it was in my mind's eye. There are a lot of scary things and just plain odd things that happened to me while growing up, but that one really scared the shit out of me. End quote. The Cartoon Frown. Quote, a few years back, around 16 years old, I was alone in my caravan that was my bedroom situated in the backyard of the family home. I was sitting on my bed, listening to music on my laptop when I suddenly had the impulse decision to look through the curtain directly behind me. The caravan was about half a foot away from the fence that separates our house from the neighbors, and sitting on that fence, looking straight at me, was a furious-looking, toad thing. It was about a foot long, had the hugest frown on its face, a raggedy hat that looked just like the Sorting Hat from Harry Potter, and he was holding onto a long cane that had a bend in the wood where he held it. I stared at him, he stared at me. A good 30 seconds and I flicked the curtain closed and sat there a little longer. Didn't feel scared or shocked or anything, as I don't think I was actually registering what was happening. I checked about 10 minutes later and it was gone. There was no eerie feeling associated with it, no terror or fear. Just this furious-looking toad thing staring at me for a couple seconds. I can still see it in my mind. He had the angriest, almost cartoon-like frown on his face, and the wooden cane was a dark brown with swirly carvings on it. I believe in things like fairies, ghosts, and all that jazz, but I'm also a rational thinking person. Yes, it could have been my imagination or brain doing a weird hallucination, but I truly do believe it was actually there and not psychological. Also, I told my best friend about it that night, and around a week later she sent me a print screen of a girl's Facebook post. I didn't know her, and neither did my friend. She was one of those girls that just added everyone for the socials, if you know what I mean. And the girl was complaining about going downstairs to get a glass of water and seeing an angry toad in the window. She freaked and ran away. To this day, I've never seen another post or story similar to this online. I did ask my friend's mother, who was a witch, and she said it was based around negative energy. This happened in Melbourne, Australia. End quote. Humpty Dumpty poem. Quote, as a kid, various relatives used to take me on trips, zoo, museums, amusement parks, the movies, etc. One of these trips, my grandfather took us kids to the movies. Now these old movie houses date back to the days when they had live stage entertainment, vaudeville. This old theater my grandfather took us to had an orchestra pit, even though it's never been used in decades, seeing as how vaudeville has been dead all that time. I was following my grandfather in the area between the front row seats and the orchestra pit. Just out of curiosity, I peeked into the orchestra pit. There was no floor. One could see into the basement. But on the basement floor was, well, you ever heard of the old Humpty Dumpty poem? Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, etc. On the floor of the basement was a large man-sized egg with a happy face painted on its shell. It had arms and legs. It was on its back, flailing its arms and legs as if it were trying to stand up but couldn't, due to its egg shape. I looked away at my grandfather for a second, then looked back into the orchestra pit. This time the painted expression on his face changed. Now the painted expression was one of grief and frustration. The eyes were closed and the mouth was in a grimace. I looked away for a brief second or so and looked back into the orchestra pit again. This time there was no egg. Just the bare floor of the basement. I looked away once more, just for a few seconds. I guess looking to tell someone what I saw. But then, I looked back into the orchestra pit. This time the orchestra pit floor was there. I couldn't see into the basement anymore. The orchestra pit floor had only a small handful of wooden folding chairs on it. Nothing else. As the years passed, I was going to the movies on my own. Sometimes I went to that very same theater again. Each and every time I did, before the movie started, I'd go take a look into the orchestra pit. But I never saw anything like that again. Just the plain old bare floor of the orchestra pit. That old theater is now gone. A typical victim of the expansion of home video and cable TV. End quote. Do you want to die? Quote. About 15 years ago, I was leading a week-long youth group backpacking trip in the mountains of Vermont. On the last of the trip, we were in an enclosed shelter, for walls, roof, and a door off the main trail. After dinner, the kids, for whatever reason, decided that they should have a sing-along, completely out of character for them, but whatever, we had a successful week. I set my digital camera to video and let it record the goofiness while they were singing Hakuna Matata and Weird Al's Albuquerque, all of it. They went to bed once they were done. Got off the trail the following day and set about cleaning my gear, wandering through all the photos and videos to put up on my SmugMug site for the families to see. Going through the videos of the song along, I hit something I wasn't expecting. In the gap between songs was a deep, unnatural voice asking forcefully, "Do you want to die?" It was not there during the singing because there's no way in hell they would have launched right into the next song without commenting on it. Lots of goofiness singing and that bit of what the fuck in the gap between songs. For extra fun, around 2 a.m., one of the leader's dogs stood up like he was gonna bite someone and started growling incessantly with the hairs on the back of his neck standing straight up. He would not calm down for anything and got a bit snappy when I tried to move him away from the door. In the same time frame, said door into the shelter kept slamming open and closed as well, despite it being a calm, moonlit night with no clouds to be seen. I tied the door shut and the dog slowly calmed down. I didn't get a lot of sleep that night, even less when I dug into the videos post-trip. No clue what the fuck was out there, but something wasn't happy with a large group intruding into its space. Never had that or anything remotely like that happen again on any of my trips into the mountains. End quote. Let me know in the comments if you have ever seen something questionable. I'd be interested to read about your experience. Thanks for watching, and please consider leaving a like on this video. If you enjoy the content, hitting that subscribe button doesn't cost you anything. Take care, and I'll see you guys next time.